Well, this is definitely a record for the least sick I've ever been on the last day of Fantastic Fest.
The least by midnight.
Yeah, not hungover a bit. I'm not even really tired. I mean, to be fair, we've seen like 7 movies so far, collections of shorts, as opposed to like 75. So it takes much less out of you. But the curating crew, I think, did a really great job putting together what they could for this limited online Fantastic Fest of picking some films that had a wide variety of types. Horror was definitely the dominant theme, I would say, for sure. But yeah, I've enjoyed this week quite a lot. But joining me is Trevor.
Howdy do.
Matt. Not Frank Foster, as he pointed out, in case there's any confusion. And Ben.
Howdy.
So we just saw Bloodthirsty, which, as we were talking about this beforehand, look, here's the thing with werewolf films. If it's not absolutely terrible, I'm thrilled to death. Now, I'm not damning this movie with faint praise by saying this. I'm saying anytime a new werewolf movie comes out and you're like, hey, that was pretty good. I'm like, add that to my very small list of, hey, that was pretty good werewolf movies. And Bloodthirsty, I feel like, goes on my, hey, it was pretty good list of werewolf movies.
I mean, werewolf movies for me usually run the gamut. My favorite, I think a lot of people's favorites, like the gold standard tends to be American Werewolf in London. Due in no small part to that fantastic transformation scene done by Rick Baker. Yeah. And usually that's what I'm looking for, is like, okay, does the transformation look cool? Does the werewolf look cool? In both of the werewolf movies we had this year, they kind of keep the wolf in the shadows, which I don't think is an awful thing.
Yeah.
We get good glimpses, like we know what it looks like by the end of the movie, but we don't ever get a good long look at it. And even the transformations are a little kept in the shadows and more inferred than shown. And I think that was I think it was a brave choice on behalf of both of these films and in this one, but at the same time, this movie I was almost more invested in the thriller drama than I was the horror movie.
Sure.
And because of that, I think the horror element adds some things. I think it lets it ratchet up its stakes at the end of the movie to a place where it fits in a festival like this, and that you really are drawn to, you're just waiting for shit to hit the fan. But it's weird. I don't know that I like this as a werewolf movie, but I like this. Like, I like it as a movie about introspection and examining who we are and who we came or where we came from, things like that. I was like, wow, that was really interesting to me. Oh, and there's some werewolf shit too.
Yeah. And this is a second feature by director Amelia Moses, who first feature came out, I think they said a week ago. So it was
just at another online festival.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, wow. So she's like back to back these two films, both of which starring Lauren Beatty. Now, I've not watched the other film that she's put out. I look forward to seeing it. It is another horror film, not a werewolf film. But Lauren Beatty, who plays the lead character here of Rockstar Gray, who's working on her sophomore album, and she goes to this way out in the middle of nowhere to stay with a super rich, legendary, but what's the word I'm looking for? Notorious music producer, not producer. No, I got that part, but thank you. Notorious music producer, played by Greg Brick, who is kind of eccentric. He's notorious because apparently a very famous artist he had worked with decades before, there was a murder trial where they're like, we think you killed her, and he was found not guilty. But this still, those sort of things, they don't happen without people still whispering about it years later. But anyway, he's supposed to be like best of the best. And what I think makes Lauren Beatty an interesting choice for this role, first off, she did perform all the music in here, and there's a lot of music. And it's not really normally my style thing, but it's good. The theme song to the movie, basically, they wrote for when she finally gets to the song Bloodthirsty. That's a great song. It's really catchy.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Are you setting up your ad for next year, Ben?
Yes.
Your bumper?
I'm grabbing the soundtrack. I got it pre-ordered. What do you want from me?
No. I meant because you said that's fantastic. I was like, I thought you were making your bumper for next year.
Even after a week of not normal Fantastic Fest, my brain is evidently fried because I didn't even pick up on that. It's been a week.
Lauren Beatty is an interesting choice to me because, like I said, aside from the fact she's very obviously a very talented musician herself, and is in fact a gay woman in real life, and normally just like gravitates towards roles that feature lesbians in a very positive and not stereotypical light. But she looks kind of lupine. I kept thinking about it, going, "You kind of look like a wolf." I don't know what it is.
It's like the Intimate, but for the Rockies.
Yeah.
See, I don't know about lupine. I don't know if I picked up on that, but there is that bit in the beginning where like she's looking in the mirror and they're doing like the eyes changing for a second, and she thinks that, at least thinks that, because the movie leads you on a bit, that she's having a mental break. I was like, okay, that's a good simple effect. You know, there's easy ways to screw up eye special effects that clearly were CGI. That looked clean. That looked good. It may have been big contacts, but it's like, yeah, like they set up some good early, hints at things at very least.
Yeah, and it was an interesting choice, like Trevor was saying, for both werewolf films we got, they both chose not really to pull back on the werewolfy effects. In the first one, Teddy, it was keeping it all but entirely in the shadows. In this one, they kind of went more for a Buffy the Vampire Slayer vampires type of look for them, where it's like, well, it's a partial transformation, which is not, I mean, I don't require my werewolves to be full on running around the streets of London and like a giant dog werewolf. This was an interesting choice to make, and I think it kept the humanity of these characters more, which this movie ultimately is really about.
No, I agree, and I always actually think the coolest werewolf designs are the in-between stages. Like, we all love American Werewolf in London, but by the time the wolf is actually tromping around Piccadilly Circus, he's a full, like, there is no David Naughton in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, when his face is stretching and his palms are stretching and he's screaming, and there's still that humanity there. I think you're absolutely right, Chris, and that helped here.
So there's a comment there just said, got hints of Raw at several moments from Joe Everfield. And I saw a lot of people saying that in the chat. But sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, here's what I liked about this in terms of the notional lycanthropy in it. They didn't use the werewolf as a cop-out. The werewolf didn't do things for the affected person.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of werewolf movies fall into the trap of the werewolf is the protagonist. It makes the decisions that move the plot forward. And these werewolves did what they wanted to do. They were just bitier about it. And I liked that aspect. I did, I thought there might be there's a particular Howling sequel that I saw a lot of DNA here of like the triggering with the flash photography scene and some of that stuff.
Which Howling sequel was that? I mean, I've seen the first three.
Three. One. It's the one where the woman is an actress. Yeah,
is the last one I watched. Yeah,
3. Someone in chat says, okay. And I just thought that was a nice little shout back to that. I liked the setup, and there's the reveals here feed each other. They make each other more plausible rather than less. And sure. so that because this sort of has 2 what a twists at the end of it, and I don't want to talk about them too much, but sure. Either one by itself would have been a little rough.
Sure.
But they actually dovetailed in nicely and kind of save each other.
I want to say, like, Trevor, you kind of hinted at this beginning that it's a good werewolf movie, but it's really a good character thriller kind of going throughout it. And something that I thought would have been really interesting with this, and I did think for a while it might have been going there, was, I don't know if any of you guys saw Climate of the Hunter last year, the Mickey Reese movie at Fantastic Fest. Mickey Reese is a really interesting director. It's Alan Galinsky here on One of Us kind of convinced me and Aaron to go see that, and we all really liked it. But that one's kind of, about the lead character. She believes their neighbor is actually a vampire trying to basically steal her sister or her daughter or both. and basically it's like the terrible, psychosis of that, and whether or not he is a vampire. And I felt like there's some of that energy here.
Oh,
And
was
I feel
that the
like
the kind of period shot one? It had a
kind
very,
of, yeah.
it had
It's
a
very
weird kind of
kitschy.
giallo look.
Yeah, it does. He has a
Yeah,
very
I
low
like
budget
that.
kitschy style. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
would have loved something more like that here. And I saw elements of it at the beginning where it's like it could be that this mythology and this werewolf lycanthropy is all in her head, and mixing it with Climate of the Hunter, some of that I would have liked actually if part of the twist was like half that and then half real werewolf or something. I like where
Or
they
if
went
they'd
with
have,
it. Don't get me wrong, but it could have been
they'd have
interesting
played
if
a
it
little
was.
more, if they'd have
Yeah, if it
played
was
a
a
little
50.
more line out before coming down one way or
Exactly.
the other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it feels very painted and obvious when it's getting to that point.
I would just like to see a werewolf movie where the werewolf is not a vegan. Like if I was a werewolf, no one would know until the 28th.
right.
It would just be like he just kept eating rare steaks.
Dude, the guy came in, he was covered with fur, he had like blood all over his mouth. He's like, he probably was out playing with his dogs and then got some barbecue. What do you want?
Yeah.
Have you met Matt? That's what we all look like down here in Texas. You should come join us, Matt. Or
Well,
you're-
Antonio,
When I transform, I actually get more lithe. Because two nights a week, this guy can actually wear a 2XL shirt.
But Antonio was mentioning in the comments that this kind of struck him with Raw, which I see that, and it hit me with Raw too. But I think there's like a little thematic overlap, but mostly I think I hesitate to make the comparison, and I want to say unfair, but that's not the term I'm going for. Really,
Sure.
Raw was a weird one for me because the first time I saw it, I didn't know what I was getting into. I knew it was something roughly about cannibalism. And because I am an ignorant white male, the whole coming of age allegory just went totally over my head. And I was kind of left going, meh. I'm not sure why that creeped everybody. Like, I don't know why that hit everybody on such a visceral level. And it wasn't until I sat down with some of the more intended audience, I guess, that I kind of understood the film a little bit better. And then on a second watch, I'm like, oh, yes, I get it. This one, I think, keyed with me better because really the arc here is an arc of an artist, A, struggling with mental illness, B, struggling with imposter syndrome, struggling with, making a sophomore effort following up your very big deal freshman effort. All of those pressures, you've got pressures on your relationship. You've got your partner and your producer do not get along. And you're having to reconcile that. And all of those are in play in very human stories that are part of the world that I exist in. So it keyed with me a little bit more than Raw did. I think Raw was definitely a story that I needed to see, and I'm glad I did. But at the time, just totally went overhead. This one keyed with me almost instantly.
So
all I
ahead,
know about Raw is no one around me wanted their steak tartare. So I got like 3 of them.
Nice. That was me when they did the premiere of the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They brought out this delicious bowl of Texas chili, and I was like, nom, nom, nom. The girl next to me was like, "Here, you can have mine," and slid it to me, and then ran off, going. I was like,
I
whatever.
never had that kind of luck.
All right, so we're gonna bring in a friend and a fellow Fantastic Fester who has been coming to the fest for a long time. He's been saying all week he wants to come on eventually, and now it's not last night. So David Jaffe, there he is. Hello, David.
Hey, David.
Hi.
Hello.
How you
How
doing?
you doing? All right.
Good.
What'd you think? What'd you think of the movie Bloodthirsty?
I liked it a lot. What about you?
We're sitting here saying we really liked it too. Just be interested to hear some of your thoughts on it.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting take on the werewolf film. Although I wish we kind of didn't know that going in.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it kind of is a spoiler to say that.
to know that it is in fact a werewolf film. I mean, there were a lot of hints early on. I mean, like first 5 minutes and she's having dreams of claws growing and crazy eyes and shoving a animal's bloody parts into her mouth. I'm like, well, if it's not a werewolf movie, I don't know what the fuck it is.
Hey, David, what compared to other werewolf movies, where do you think you'd put this?
I honestly haven't seen enough to know, to tell you the truth.
You haven't seen enough werewolf movies?
Or American in years. I haven't seen those in years. No, I've seen those, but not in years. I'm sorry, my feet, I'm trying to move the camera properly.
Yeah, technology always fails us when we need it the most.
I know, it's like watching La Jetée.
Yeah.
Sorry, I broke Trevor. Sorry. Obscure reference for the 4 people out there who'll get that joke. So let's go ahead and talk real quick about the Short Fuse Festival today. Who got to see this? The horror shorts.
Great choice.
Yeah,
great choice.
Trevor, did you see it?
I didn't, unfortunately. Part of my big problem, I love that they kept Fantastic Fest to the off-work, traditional work hours, but there was a lot of life trying to intrude on my evening time this week, and there's just a couple of days I didn't get 1 or 2 of the slots watched, and unfortunately, this was one of them.
Yeah, I watched everything except for the older films. I'm like, oh man, I got so much shit to watch as it is, and it's not really reviewing something that's new, so I'm like, nothing against those films. I just have so much stuff I gotta watch that's new. So I tend to stick to that. And I actually really like the harsh with Ben. You said you saw this?
No, I didn't. I just kind of like Trevor. I've been stuck on nights this month, so like this whole week is like, okay, try to work and watch movies. I'm like,
Matt,
challenge me, sure.
Matt, you please.
Did I watch the short
horror shorts today? I watch the horror shorts today.
See, and I feel awful because I was on the show earlier this week saying shorts are criminally underwatched. You should watch shorts, and then, yeah.
And then you didn't watch the shorts.
I didn't. I did watch the first first round of shorts with the
what that called? Fantastic Short. No, Fantastic
Shorts.
Yeah. Short Fuse is traditionally my favorite shorts block, and I will probably squeeze it in before bed tonight.
And there is a lot of good stuff on it this year, and it's all
amazing.
horror. And one thing I'm so glad I finally got a chance to see, because I've been hearing so much about it. It's played at other festivals, is Great Choice, directed by Robin Commissar. It's a 7-minute thing, and the description of the fest is a woman is trapped in a Red Lobster commercial. And that's what it is. It's this like old 80s Red Lobster commercial, and then it goes back, except it's clear the one character, who I believe that was Carrie Coon, and starts like looking around and starts becoming self-aware that she's in a commercial, and then it keeps going back, and the guy who's like she's supposed to be talking to is like, say the line. And it gets more surreal and horrifying. It's like, what the fuck is this? It's perfect, man. I love it.
It's like too many cooks.
Yeah.
That like too many cooks.
Back to mind the Florida short from the Fantastic Shorts, like just so out of left field and so retro, but like really well done.
That was and when I said before that I really liked that one, everyone was like, "Oh, wait till you get to see Great Choice. It's really gonna." You'll love that if you love the Florida one. Also, another one everyone was talking about was Abracitos, which everyone's like, oh my God, they got to make a spinoff of this, which is I really did like it. And it's when it gets to the sting moment, it's coming and it still gets you. You're ready for the exact moment it's going to happen and it still gets you. I mean, really loud strings kicking in will do that. But a cool little story about a girl and her sister, and they're sort of trapped in this little kid's fort in the bedroom because there's something outside the girl refers to as Abracitos. When I looked it up, it said it's Spanish for huggy. I don't know, but
Okay.
it was an effectively creepy little Spanish short. Yeah. Oh, Trevor is the Abracitos. Little hugs is what Antonio says. But that one was quite good. But I was deeply impressed with one of these ones. I'm surprised that more people weren't raving about more, which was called The Three Men You Meet at Night, which is a really cool. It's not it's a movie that sets up your expectations of horror with a girl walking alone at night, no reference to the movie, who is like, clearly she's been crying. She's just come from a party and a succession of men start basically scaring the shit out of her and creeping on her. And it feels in every way like this is a slasher, and it's not. It's trying to use all the tricks of a horror movie to make you feel like what it's like to be a woman who's alone in that situation, dealing with men who appear like they might turn predatory, and it does it extremely well. I was deeply impressed with it. David, did you have any favorites in this particular block?
Well, today I liked all fields and stock, but I want to say two things, by the way. Actually, it's funny Trevor, it's funny you mentioned the Florida short, because actually I noticed it was that Great Choice is actually from the Borscht Corporation, which is from Florida, South Florida.
Huh.
It's a big conspiracy. Did J.J. Abrams make both of these? It feels like it.
And also, I think it premiered at Popcorn Price. Anyway, the other thing is that the girl one reminded me of Get Out, at the ending of Get Out, with the way that it was, that it, like, you know, like everyone, that it puts you in the head of you know, like we're you and I, Chris, are white males, and it puts you in the mind space of like, so but the end comes, you're like you're just afraid as everyone else always is in the minority group, because you're as afraid for them, you know, as anyone experiences it all the time.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think I explained that well.
No, I passed.
Yeah, I got it.
You know, something that has just codified for me coming out of this festival, you know, remote and different as it has been this year, is that I have seen, it seems like a lot of content that is like, yeah, it is horror, it is genre, it is, you know, whatever it is. But, like, for example, the movie tonight, Bloodthirsty, it functions almost entirely as a thriller drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if people know this, but one of us has an online community on Facebook, all of us. And the question seems to come up about once every 6 weeks, you know, is Silence of the Lambs a horror movie? And you can run through the checklist of, well, it has this, it has this, it has this, it has this. And you can run down a checklist, but people will always tell you, no, it just doesn't feel like a horror movie. But I would argue a lot of the horror movies I've seen here this week are, you know, if you run down just a checklist of what it takes to be a horror movie, probably are less qualified than Silence of the Lambs. But the horror elements have been so well done that that's what sticks with you, and you want to call it a horror movie.
So here's the thing. You just hit, and Ben Mutt knows this already. I don't even have to tell him, on one of my biggest pet peeves in the fucking world is people who are like, anytime a movie is really great, wide release, they will not call it a horror movie. I've heard people argue The Exorcist isn't a horror movie, and I am not fucking kidding with you. And Jaws, because they're like, it can't be a horror movie because it's good. And I'm like, you don't like horror movies is the problem. And when one comes along you do bother to watch and like, you're like, no, that's not a horror movie, because your mind
they're horror films
in a different category. Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie. Jonathan Demme has called it a horror movie. It's a fucking horror movie. It's got a serial killer who's a cannibal and another serial killer who wears human skin. I don't know what the fuck movie you were watching, but that was a horror movie.
I mean,
yeah, I've heard Chris say that, you know, since the last time we were in a bar. So a year ago, I guess.
And
when are we?
Not even close to the first time or last time.
No,
it's really one of the most horrible horror concepts there is. I mean, imagine just being like locked up by people that are just unworthy to confine you and having to talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
No,
And-
that's a thriller. It's not a horror movie. It was only just thrilling. No, shut up. Go away. Please stop talking to me.
I admit there are some films that draw the line where I go, you know what? It can be a horror movie and a different kind of movie at the same time. That's fine. But don't try and take it's not a horror movie. Nobody goes, oh, it's not a thriller. Nobody ever says that, right?
Yeah.
Like, nobody.
Silence of the Lambs is Gulliver's Travel, but the head Lilliputian thinks she's a psychologist.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, God.
What's everybody's favorite thing that played the fest so far? Trevor, what's your favorite thing at the fest this year?
You know, I was really surprised by the Queen of Black Magic yesterday. I didn't get a chance to hop on. I watched it way late in the evening, which was a mistake. Hard one ally yesterday. But I really enjoyed that, and I think maybe it was probably the better horror movie for me for the festival, but I think my favorite movie overall, and this is why I kind of qualified it, like, there's a lot of genre blending this year, and I really appreciate that. But I think my favorite movie has been The Stylist. Like, it caught me totally on my heels, caught me off guard. I did not think that was going to be my movie. I was just kind of like in there to be part of the festival. And I walked away really in love with that movie, really in love with the performers, really in love with the filmmakers. I'm super eager to see what they do next. And yeah, it's another one of those movies, like you mentioned with the short earlier today, that you could clock the end of that movie coming. I clocked the end of The Stylist coming. I saw the big reveal at the end, but it wasn't one of those, I can see this coming. It was like, oh, I can see this coming.
Yeah, you can't wait.
Your buy-in is so on that level. Like, you're just like, no, I'm going to watch this pay off and enjoy every minute of it.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to give it to The Stylist.
Fair enough. Ben?
Yeah, mine, it ends up being like the only not actual horror movie we had this year. Technically not horror movie, Laughter. I mean, it's a movie about horrible, horrible things that have happened or potentially going to happen here at some point soon. God help us. But it's such a beautiful, weird movie that I have worked very hard to try to find a way to explain to other people, because it is such a clear Fantastic Fest movie. And that way it's like, if you've been to a Fantastic Fest, I can explain to you why this is good. If you've not been to a Fantastic Fest, it's going to be very hard to explain to you why there's a lot of joy and fun and beauty in this movie about dealing with a mass grave and murders and surviving that in a civil war. But it's kind of an uplifting movie in the darkest way. And that's one of the most pure Fantastic Fest experiences I could think of. And two, one of the best movies I think I've seen this year. Not that there's been amazing movies to see because there's no theaters, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Matt?
I don't know.
Harumph.
It's always like the tie between the movie you sort of empirically think is the best, which I think would be The Stylist, but the film I honestly had the best time watching was I'm tempted to say Old Man Movie and say I just love milk, but really I would say I really liked How to Deter a Robber. Mostly,
that was fun.
Mostly because of the weird Ron Swanson vibe that Uncle Andy had. It just
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
What about you, David?
Well, I actually watched pretty much everything. I actually did everything except the bowling night, by the way. But my favorite things were the 100 Best Kills.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the Old Man Movie, Yay Death. And Action USA was awesome.
Okay. Yeah. I texted with my buddy Brian Salisbury, who runs Junk Food Cinema with C. Robert Cargill, because I was like, hey, dude, you saw Action USA. And he got offended. He was like, what do you fucking think? I've watched it 3 times since it played.
I was going to say, Chris, me and you sat with him for VFW last year, and he just sat there with the biggest grin I've ever seen on a grown man's face the whole time.
Yeah.
That would have been so fun to watch with him. God damn it.
Yeah, he would be the guy I would want to watch with him because he'd be the guy going, "Oh no, oh shit, oh my god," and then letting you know what other weird genre shit that no one else has ever heard of that the various actors had been in, and yeah.
Yes.
Great. I'm going to say I love that we all have different picks, but for me, it was actually The Boy Behind the Door. I found it stomach knottingly tense. I love that. It's so rare that a film, even a horror film that I really like, can genuinely get me under my skin and start to scare me. And that one literally scared me because it's Fantastic Fest. All bets are fucking off. Like 2 kids, if it had played my local Metroplex, I wouldn't have been worried. I would have been like, they're going to be fine. But it's playing Fantastic Fest. You don't know what's going to happen to those kids. I mean, this year, everyone was looking for a theme. Let me tell you what the theme was this year. It was Children in Danger was the theme of Fantastic Fest this year. It played in like 4 of the shorts and the horror one too. It was like, yeah, that was definitely the theme. And that was the king of those. But I liked everything I saw. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't get to talk about it last night, just honorable mention for The Queen of Black Magic because it is the horror movie that I didn't clock coming. I did not know what was happening in that movie. I mean, I knew what was happening, but I had no idea where it was going. I had no idea what it was going to be until it got there. Yeah. And on top of that, it genuinely scared me. Like it was like I said, that was not hyperbole. It was a rough evening.
Dude, I was sitting there watching it going, please don't let those kids be standing up and facing the other way when he turns back around. Yeah. Please don't let and then it's like, you get the lightning bolt up your spine. Like, fuck, they're standing up. And
I was less concerned about that. The fact that they just were facing the other way when he got there, I was like, I hate this. I hate this moment right now. I was saying last night when you were in here, Trevor, was like, I love horror movies, but I'm a horror chicken. I was pacing my apartment. I was like, this is so much easier when there's other people around me also scared. This fucking sucks. Why the fuck am I doing this alone? And I love that, and I hate it. It was great.
Well, I want to end on because it is now Halloween. Yes, it is. It's you know what? I'm sorry. We get the whole month this year. End of story. Yeah. And like October 1st at midnight, it was Halloween, and it will be that till the October 31st at midnight. Sorry. And I want to know from you guys what horror movie that either may have played previous Fantastic Fests or elsewhere that would you say is like criminally underseen that people should put on their lists this year and try and seek out and find to watch? Trevor, what do you think? Unless you don't want to go first.
You sprung this on us. This is unprepared, but the one leaps immediately to mind. This was a Fantastic Fest movie. Is Southbound.
Southbound, the anthology.
Closer to the mic, buddy.
Yeah, get a little closer to your mic.
Neat little horror anthology. Road horror movie. A lot of great people are involved in it. It was a personal favorite of mine. It's got some roots to my hometown here. One of the bands featured on the soundtrack is from my hometown. One of the writers is from here. So it holds that special place in my heart. But on top of that, it's just like a good werewolf movie. It is just kind of a gem in the rough to find a consistent horror anthology that is consistent throughout. And that's one of those for me. And you don't hear a lot of people talking about it. And I think that's that.
Yeah. If I was people do ask me, what do you think is a good horror anthology? I was like, hey, there's plenty of anthologies with several good parts. There's very few, like on one hand, you can count the ones where all of them are good. And I think that is the most recent one I've seen where I'm like, yes, every segment in there was great. I think before that was Trick or Treat. And before that, it was probably something with Peter Cushing in it.
Yeah.
Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I was considering Trick or Treat because that is, in my opinion, the quintessential Halloween movie. Like that movie just gets the spirit of Halloween correct, and it's one of the last great anthologies. But I'm going to go with one that we mentioned a little bit last night when we talked about horror movies, which is I Saw the Devil, because that is just that movie to this day rocks me when I watch it. I'm just like, it's haunting. The way it ends is one of the darkest endings to a movie I have ever greatly enjoyed. It is just beautiful, dark. Is it Kim Ji-woon? I'm terrible with the Korean names, unfortunately. That's basically like I had seen The Good, the Bad, the Weird before that I saw I saw The Devil. I'm like, you are maybe my favorite Korean director. This is just amazing. Also, there's that taxi cab fight scene, which alone is just like, you're an insane person for even trying this, and it works so well.
Matt,
I'm gonna I'm thinking in my head. If
where
there's
else would you be
something-
thinking?
Oh,
You guys
you
would be
know,
Oh, it's
Here
weird.
and
Matt just
there.
disconnected after that, huh?
here and there. I think the one, and I'm gonna talk about the privilege of attending the festival here, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the festival cut of the Devil's Candy,
Nice, yeah.
which the theatrical cut was slightly abridged, and I think it lost a little bit of power for it. Still very good. I still recommend the theatrical cut to people that's out on streaming now. But the festival cut was just like it's a movie about a metalhead kind of losing his mind. Maybe he's possessed, maybe he's not. And it relied on some musical sequences that were longer in the festival cut. And there is he's an artist, and there's a Faustian plot with an art dealer that is more developed in the festival cut. So that's one where like please do a criterion of it, do something of it where we can see that vision of it, because
Yeah.
it's just so much creepier.
It's such a great movie either way, though. And Ethan Embry, who God, was he was in the first Final Destination, wasn't he? Or no, that's Devon Sawa. I'm trying to think. Ethan Embry did have a horror movie thing much earlier in his career, and I'm blanking on what it is.
Was it Idle Hands?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But he has had a really good past couple years with films that are great and no one is watching. Did you watch Blind Spotting? I mean, holy shit. His role in there versus his scene as the cop at the end of that, just like, it's one of the most powerful scenes that's been filmed in cinema in the last decade, I think.
Well, and when I saw that film, I was coming off of Cheap Thrills.
Mm-hmm.
I already
Yeah.
holy shit, he is so unrecognizable in Cheap Thrills. Then you take a step further down the Matthew McConaughey trail, which is it's a joke, but it's a fair comparison, because Ethan Embry in The Devil's Candy is really fucking good. Like lost in that role.
Yeah, that movie was my favorite the year that it played here, Matt. I came out just raving about it to everyone, going, people always say, oh, this is a heavy metal horror movie, but it's always either kind of goofy heavy metal, like the original Trick or Treat. We're like, this is dumb, or Slumber Party Massacre 2, or it's like a horror comedy straight up, where it's like, oh, it's a bunch of metalheads, but they're lovable. This was the only movie I can think of that I'm like, that's a horror movie for real metalheads.
Well, and there's a couple sort of thesis points. Like, first off, like, it avoids him being the bad guy. Like the metalhead is a loving parent. He has a good relationship with his kid. He's, and also it has a mythology. Like it's a cogent ghost story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like one of these. It doesn't have found footage syndrome where it just something happens at the end and then we smash the credits.
Yeah.
So it's like it reminded me of like what's something else that has that. The first Nightmare on Elm Street has that mythology element where it is actually like there's a reason that things are cursed, and we get some resolution, and the exposition happens in the movie and not on a slate at the beginning.
I was super impressed watching it. It was like, holy shit, there are Metallica and Slayer songs in the soundtrack to this film. Not because I love Metallica and Slayer, although I do. They're notoriously hard to get Metallica to approve anything for movies, right? Like, it costs a lot, and they say no more than they don't. And I was like, this is a tiny little indie. Where the fuck did they get the money for this? Well, it turns out they were so proud of this film. They brought it to both bands. We're like, we really think you'll approve this film and we'll like it. We can't afford to pay your normal rates. And they were like, yeah, you can have them. put these songs in the movie. We love this. David, what's your pick?
I actually have two. Satan's Slaves from a couple years ago by Joko Anwar.
Yeah, great stuff.
And then there's another one that I've seen that's not really here in America yet, called The Closet, which blew my mind. From South
I don't know
Korea.
that one. Did that play Fantastic Fest?
No, it didn't.
Okay,
I don't
but
want
The
to say too much
Closet
about
from
it. Closet from South Korea.
Okay, yeah, I love South Korean cinema. I think we all do now. The whole now I feel almost like, hey, that was our thing. You guys, get away, get away. No, Parasite is the only good South Korean film. You don't get the rest. They're mine.
Well, and maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's kind of like a parting shot. This Matt and I do the Nighthawks podcast as our little side piece when we're not working at one of us, and we do an Oscar coverage every year. We try and and I haven't been able to go to Fantastic Fest for the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I was making a political statement. It's not because just life got in the way. Sometimes that happens. And I unfortunately have missed a lot of, Chingu is entirely lost on me. Like, I recognize it as a mascot, but like, wow, that is
poor soul.
Shit to people. And, I missed out on that. And that I feel lesser for that. And I was always a little, jealous. I'm like, holy shit, Bong Joon-ho showed up to Fantastic Fest and got to hang out with all these people. And then as we're ramping up to the Oscars, here comes Parasite out of fucking nowhere. And, I picked it as my dark horse pick for the movie, and then it made it. And we got to do our first ever after Oscars kind of reaction episode. And I got a little choked up talking about how it's so crazy to have, been at Fantastic Fest when I started coming in 2009, and nearly a decade later, watching the world, watching Hollywood, watching the, cinema say, hey, these guys, they got it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was just so fucking validating. Now, I wasn't there that year. I didn't get to watch Parasite with y'all. I didn't get to meet director Bong. Like, I have a lot of regrets about that, but just that moment was just so fulfilling and so validating for me that it made me give a shit about the Oscars.
Yeah, we're all friends with him now. He texts us all the time, right, Ben? He's just constant.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
like,
Oh, God. He won't stop sending me the recipes from the movie. I'm like, look, I already looked them up on Google. I have the internet.
The trick isn't getting him to talk. The trick is getting him to stop talking.
He's like, actually, Tim named the theater after him.
He's like, oh, wait, what? He said, Trevor, you don't understand my work at all.
Yeah. Tim named the theater after him just so that he would be speechless for a few minutes. It was great.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this up by picking mine, which is a film I saw the first Fantastic Fest I went to in 2007, which is a Canadian film called End of the Line. I really fell in love with this little movie. It's by director Maurice Devereaux, who I ended up staying in touch with. Cool guy. It never really went anywhere. Only people who went there that year seem to remember it. And it's a fucking shame because it is a deeply unsettling horror film with a bunch of people who are on a subway that stops when the apocalypse happens. And the type of apocalypse that happens is the biblical end of the world. So the actual biblical end of the world happens, and with rapture and everything, and the dead coming back to life, and they have to negotiate their way through this. And it's very much an atheist point of view film. It's like it's criticizing the entire conceit biblically, which for me as a total heathen, I was like, yes, please give me more of that. But it's an excellent, fun, very John Carpenter-esque survival against monsters in the tunnels, but with lots of from different, there's stuff that's Escape from New York. There's stuff that's totally, God, what is the one with Alice Cooper?
Prince of Darkness.
Yes, Prince of Darkness. Thank you. Really liked it. Antonio saying it was the original in The Invitation. It's like, yeah, it's fair, different, but yeah, I see his point. But yeah, really recommend that one if you can track that down. I've been bugging the guys at Shudder to pick it up forever, which I wish they would listen because more people should really see that. That's a great one. But we are going to wrap this up. We're at 45 minutes. Thank you, all you guys. I wish we could have been hanging out in person. We'd probably be in a lot more pain right now if we were, to be fair.
We'd
be partying and regretting.
Yeah.
Ghost Town, or the American Legion or something, I'd be drinking I'd have like 2 shiners in each pocket. I'd have 1 in each hand. My face would be wet for some reason.
Yeah.
And I'd be, hollering at Nacho to, come dance or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I would have like a weird face tattoo, like fake tattoo that I'm like, where? I don't remember getting that.
Or a real tattoo.
Well, that hasn't
And then
happened
the
yet.
after
so-
party.
Yeah,
And then the after party.
after party. It's like we were banned from the Legion Hall for 8 years, but for a weird reason.
Comments that finally happened.
Yeah, that'd be a weird reason because they were like, your theme was Korean War. You can't do that. No, this is the American Legion Hall. I was like,
did you see anything else we did? Because 8 years seems light. Wow.
I presumed it was something like, man, somebody was like caught shooting up heroin in the projection, but I didn't, something, or like, oh, they chopped down a tree because there was a scene in a movie. But no, yeah, they lowered the American flag and put up the North Korean flag, and bad call. I just remember the one year we were there, and a friend of ours, Fitz, got really drunk, and they had this huge tank of water, like outdoor pool, but a gigantic one. And he just fell and tripped into the side of it. And all of that water, like thousands of gallons, just came rushing across the entire field. It was amazing.
Well, and then there was a bunch. It was, oh God, that Legion Hall.
Yeah.
But that was the North Korean year. That was Red Dawn, wasn't it? The closing night movie.
That was the one year I wasn't there, but I believe it may have been. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I missed that one as well.
That was the
Well,
only
that's the
year
same
I missed.
Like the same place where they did the Bad Time Day El Royale party.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically were like, fine, that wasn't a great reason to ban you, fine.
Yeah, they're officially allowed to use it again now, but fair enough. I wish they would go back to the Wild West town. That was my favorite of the closing night party locations so far.
I've missed the both times we went there. Just like I got sick both of them, and I was like, I hate this so much.
So good. All right, guys. Well, we're going to call it a night. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming on here. Thanks to our guest, David. Really appreciate you joining us, and hopefully we'll all see each other in person next year. Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, thanks for watching our video. This is Oneofus.net. Like and subscribe to keep us going. Check out all the rest of the videos we have here on YouTube. Go to Oneofus.net for tens of thousands of audio recording podcasts that we've done reviewing your favorite movies and television shows. And you can even become a subscriber there for yet more stuff, including commentaries for movies and television shows. Join Oneofus.net, support Oneofus.net, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.